Rosa gave most of the background, but about 7 years ago or so, and I don't know how many of you may have been involved, but SCAG went through a growth visioning process, which is their Compass Blueprint program, and they have done kind of 2 efforts, and then this is a 3rd project, also called Compass Blueprint. The first couple rounds were much more, even though they were out here in the valley and looking somewhat specifically at the valley, it was to tie it into their regional, the whole SCAG region growth visioning process, and to prepare the maps and land use maps for their regional comprehensive plan. This program was a little bit more focused, I should say much more focused, on Imperial Valley. And the purpose of the project was to put together an action plan for how, a more feasible action plan to implement, to educate and implement the Compass Blueprint principles in Imperial Valley. So we started out with, we put together a steering committee. Sabrina was on that. I think Ruben was there also to figure out the best way to do some of the initial outreach. Then we held a community workshop. Then we held a community workshop. The purpose of the workshop was to kind of present what the growth vision is and what the principles are, what SCAG's 4 guiding principles are, and then to go through just the whole thought process of looking at we did a visual preference survey looking at what some of the development looks like that conforms to the guiding principles. And then we went through just a thought process of looking at regional maps and then looking at the maps specific to the different cities, where the opportunities were, where they thought growth should be focused, and just collecting what different community members thought the main issues facing the valley were, and what the issues were that are kind of serving as barriers to implementing the Compass Blueprint principles. So really quickly, just some background on Compass Blueprint. It's SCAG is a blueprint for regional growth. It's really focusing on changing some of the growth patterns, some of the other kind of, it's really similar to some of the other planning buzzwords. I don't know how many of you have heard the planning concept, smart growth, new urbanism, really trying to create more compact development in focused areas so that we're limiting the impact to the land uses, and especially in Imperial Valley, trying to limit the impact to agriculture. So just trying to change the way that we grow so that we're preserving resources and also improving some of the kind of hearts of our downtown areas. So the 4 principles of Compass are mobility, livability, prosperity, and then sustainability. So with that, part of the concept is to try and limit land use and transportation growth to just 2% more area. And it's not so much kind of strictly keeping it to only 2%. It's sort of a thought process. It's the goal. It's kind of the how is our growth pattern kind of oriented. And trying to invest efforts according to the strategy will hopefully yield progress towards implementing those 4 goals of mobility, livability, prosperity, and sustainability. So as I said, we did some Compass outreach. We held a community workshop, and at that workshop we identified key issues. So I'm just going to go through these, and the real purpose of me kind of going through them is from that we identified the main target growth opportunity areas, and then we're in the process of preparing an implementation program. So the key issues really fed into that program, the strategies and priorities and such that we put into that program, which is also here today, were really designed to try and respond to the issues that were identified. So just so you know when we get to the strategies, kind of what generated them and what went into that. So the key issues, the first one was lack of coordinated regional, and I put sub-regional because SCAG considers kind of Imperial Valley a sub-region of their larger region, so that's one reason for that. And really, people identify that there's a real inconsistency in the development requirements between jurisdictions, which translates into developers being kind of able to shop their projects around so that it kind of ties the city's hands to asking them to go either above and beyond or to do growth in a different way or to modify their project so that it's more what potentially cities are wanting to ask for, but they don't feel like they can because then it'll just go somewhere else. They also identify just a lack of coordinated transportation and infrastructure planning. I know that some of the committees through IVAG are set up to try and focus on some of those issues. And I know also the County of Imperial through their transportation element or circulation element update last year really did try to start coordinating and kind of aligning transportation and other infrastructure corridors. So I know that there are efforts here in progress and in place to try and start doing that, but there's a lot of work left to do. The second issue was just the lack of political will. And again, this is going back to what I was saying about the developers somewhat being able to go between jurisdictions and kind of shop around. So people at the workshop thought that if there was more education to the decision makers, more of an just more of a community, showing a community desire for that type of growth, and also just a more thorough understanding of what the benefits are to the cities, and that it really promotes both community character, but also community viability and growth and prosperity. And then they just identified just kind of the traditional, pro-traditional type growth stance, and just that education was needed to, again, explain what the other kinds of growth look like and what the opportunities and what the benefits are to that. The third issue was inadequate infrastructure and public services to accommodate population growth. At the workshop, we looked at the population projections that SCAG had for the different cities in Imperial Valley and Imperial County as a whole. And one of the main concerns was that looking at those numbers, they didn't feel that there was adequate infrastructure, public services, fire, police, and water and such to provide for that. So they identified that as a key issue that we need to consider in order to then start thinking about accommodating that growth and putting, more dense development in certain areas. But in order for that to happen, we need to make the other things fall into place also in order for it to work. And then just lastly, I have in here a key preference. So I said we went through a visual preference survey, just looking at all different kinds of development, whether it be super dense urban or more rural or just duplex, or we looked at different kinds of commercial, mixed use, just to get a sense of what, kind of trying to show community members what it looked like, but then also getting a sense of what they liked and they didn't like. And the consensus really was that the more mixed use, kind of compact development that you see from, that implement the guiding principles, there was a real desire for. The concern was just it needs to be tailored and just made to fit into Imperial Valley rather than taking San Diego or taking LA and trying to plunk it down here. That growth pattern should work here and will work here, but it needs to be carefully and just really mindfully done. So from the workshop, we did an analysis, like I said, to look at what some of the opportunity areas are. And this, the kind of criteria we looked at was just what the population projections are saying, what people said at the workshop, what they drew on the map, and also looking at where there's already efforts in place to start working towards this kind of these principles. So from that, we just concluded that it's probably no surprise, but